Growing up, I had dreams and aspirations, but always felt like the kid that didn't fit in. For the most part, I wasn't a bad kid, but when I made the transition into adulthood, I turned to the streets for guidance. This led to getting locked up in juvenile hall, doing time in CYA, and eventually a 120-month sentence in federal prison. I had a lot of time to think and reflect during my federal sentence, so I share with you what I learned, hoping I can positively influence someone else's life with Prison Talk.
What's up? Big Herc 916, getting down on Fresh Out Prison Talk. We had a viewer email and ask whether or not, as an inmate, can you be friends with a CO in prison? And the answer to that is no. No, because there are ethical boundaries, and also there are just politics involved in that. Not to say there won't be cool COs you come across that aren't gonna be like fronting you off or, you know, tearing up your cell and just making problems for you. But as far as being real friends, there's the inmates and then there's the staff, COs. And whenever it comes down to their job or you, they're gonna choose their job, man, every time. So there could be a situation where an inmate gets into it and he gets beat down or gets his rights violated by another CO or staff member. That CO at the end of the day is gonna roll with the other COs because it's not worth him losing his job over what he considers an inmate. See, they don't look at you as a human being. You're looked at as an inmate. Now, I have ran across some cool COs, and it wasn't like we were buddy-buddy or nothing like that. They might have just, you know, asked me maybe about, hey man, what was it like being in the adult entertainment industry? Or, you know, I heard you were out there, you know, doing your thing, blah, blah, blah. And it was a quick, maybe 30-second, 40-second conversation, you know, in the laundry room or maybe in the chow hall in passing. But you got to remember, everybody is watching you in prison. Everybody is paying attention to who you're talking to, where you're hanging out, all that stuff, man. And so it's not only the inmates, it's other COs. So he's getting sweated by other COs, want to know why he's talking to that inmate. And like I said, you're not a human being, you're an inmate. You're in there for whatever you did, and their job is to keep you there. You know, they're not to sympathize with you, they're not to compromise with you. They are there to keep you restrained in prison. And getting cool could mean that they might sympathize, which means that there could be a security breach. And that's why, you know, a lot of the women in prison, for sure, they don't want them talking to male inmates because of just what that can turn into. And you've seen instances where women have helped male inmates escape or, you know, bring them in stuff. And whenever you talk about COs usually hooking up with inmates, it's females who are compromised to bring in contraband. You might have a male CO because he wants to get some money, and maybe if he knew somebody you knew on the street, he might somehow flex a little side hustle. But you know, a lot of the COs in there, they're trying to, like I said, keep their job. And unless there becomes a serious trust factor, and there have been COs who, you know, and you won't know unless you hear from the inmate because they'll play it off, but the inmate might have a plug with a CO who's bringing in cell phones or who's bringing in other contraband, because a CO can make an extra $100K a year, $200K a year. I mean, I knew a CO who worked in the state who told me about one of his coworkers. They made $250,000 a year bringing in contraband, and they couldn't prove it, the actual institution, so they got an early retirement. But it made an extra $250,000. They do that for, they get a 2-3 year run, man, they're a millionaire. And this is cash. You're not talking about taxable income. This is non-tax income. So you can't openly be friends with a CO, even though you might get cool, but that friendship is, if anything, dependent on an economic benefit. Unless the CO is, unless he's like somehow he's gay, and then the inmate is gay, and then they got something going on. But even then, that inmate who is gay and the CO, there's going to be a financial there, because that gay inmate is using his sexual interaction to benefit financially, because everything in there is about a financial come up. It's just like the guys in there messing with the females. They busting cheeks and whatever if they, are able to do it on the sly, but they're going to eventually have her bring something in, because even the homies, if they find out, they're going to be like, hey, man, have her do this, or, make this happen. And a lot of times that's how these guys, stack up their bread while they up in there, because they're able to make some moves. There's guys who've made 6 figures off of cell phones and other things that have been brought in by COs, and then that allows them to get out and buy a house, start a business. You always got to be thinking about the hustle, and that when you're talking about being gone for a decade, if you're in there for a year, you might not risk trying to get involved in anything. But a lot of people who do a lot of time, they are looking for something to build if they're smart, so when they get out, they have something. And not necessarily everything based on contraband, but you're just trying to figure out ways to at least get out of prison not being broke. But you're not going to make any type of serious friendship. I mean, the closest I got to being cool with a CO was, like I said, it was just in passing, and got a couple protein bars here and there, because the CO seen I was about working out real tough. I was in a training, and they wouldn't even, it wasn't like they were handing them directly to me. They would, kind of just, I would peep game and, slide and whatever, because they can't see you passing anything to an inmate. And that's about it. I know some homies that were getting, the little sex books up in there from COs, and that's, considered contraband. It's a weak contraband, but it's contraband. But a sex book in prison, you could rent that thing out. You can make off a sex book in prison, man, shit, you can make upwards of maybe a couple $100 a week just renting the book out. Now they got the cell phone, so dudes are, slinging cell phones. So the game has changed. When I was up in there, it wasn't a bunch of cell phones. If guys had them, I didn't know about them, but I was in the, highs and then the medium. But, once you get to the lows and you get to the camps, and it's a little bit more loose, and people are making more moves. The COs are different. At the camp, the COs are different, because it's not as many eyeballs. You don't have all the cameras. In the camps, they got, blind spots, and, people are doing all kind of other stuff. And the COs are, complicit in all that. And a lot of times they're not really making a big deal, because you're at a camp, so they know you got a lot of freedom. So at the camp, yeah, you could probably make friends, have made conversations, because it's not as political. But in the USP, if you're caught talking to a CO, like, man, that is not going down. I don't know if it's changed since then, but at a USP, you're not sitting down having a conversation with a CO or watching TV like with a CO bullshit. You're not doing that. I haven't even seen it at the mediums, but like I said, things have changed a lot. But as far as being friends now with staff that, work in other areas, you might get cool, because staff, if they're maybe running the rec, or they're running, say, for instance, education, a lot of times you might be able to get them to bring you in magazines or little things like that, bring you in a burger or something, slide you something, and get cool like that. But, you got to also think about, like I said, other inmates are watching you and they're hating, so they'll drop a kite on you. You know, they'll say something to another staff member, get both you guys caught up, or get a write up, and you get written up. You go to the hole, they might get transferred over trying to be a friend with a CO. So there's a lot involved in that. And besides the CO risking their job, as far as, you know, getting too comfortable, it also puts the inmate in a position, because of other inmates and the politics and what are you talking about, why are you hanging out, and all this stuff. So there's a lot of other catches in there. And like I said, if you are getting down with a CO, you want to keep it as low key as possible and make your moves. And, you know, the CO's in there benefiting financially. And so that way there's something that's worth the interaction as far as like that. But there are COs who, you know, who are cool with dudes. And I don't know if you would call it a friendship, an economic relationship, but yeah, COs, you know, some of them, they can make some extra money, you know, besides overtime. You know, if they bringing in the phones, you know, bringing in chargers, they're bringing in whatever else, you know, somebody's interested in, big money, man. So that's about the extent of what I would say being friends with a CO would entail. I didn't have any COs I was like super friendly with, besides the one who was, you know, we didn't have 2 minutes of conversation. Maybe we did it, maybe a minute and a half of just like bullshitting about working out here and there. But it wasn't like we were buddy or nothing like that. And that's probably the extent as far as, you know, me conversating or having any type of friendship with a CO, man. It's all predicated on you being looked at as being non-human in order for prison to work, because you have to detach yourself, if you're an employee there, from the person you're looking over, you know, that you're overseeing. So you can't feel like that person could be your friend, because then you might have compassion, and then that takes it the relationship in a whole nother direction. So the friendship thing is, you know, it's non-existent. Even the inmates up in there you're with, man, you find some cool ones, but you know, you got to really watch yourself even on that tip. So hope that answers your question. Subscribe, share. Big Kirk 916, Prison Talk.
Go. Hey, what does your shirt say?
Cancel culture.
Why is it crossed out?
Because over at Fresh Out, we ain't with that bullshit. Pick you up a shirt at freshoutseries.com.